Thank you for
Yes,
sticking with me and joining me. Happy Friday. Other than the little technical issues we had, how's Friday going thus far?
Friday is good. No
Friday.
complaints on a Friday, especially, a Friday where we have an event tomorrow. We're doing open practice. We are headed back into the season. So it's a good Friday.
Yeah, you guys have had a little bit of a break. Most leagues have All-Star weekend or there's a break in the season. And I caught your last game before the break. I've gone to 2 games since I've been in and out of DC over the last couple of months. And I got to say, you have won me over, Washington Spirit. It's an incredible experience. But before we dive into what it was like for me as a newbie, I want to kind of back into it because there's been a lot of conversation about the growth of women's sports over the last few years. And in my mind, there's been a few leagues and some teams, especially, that have done a really great job of redefining what a fan could look like. And I think that is why it's expanded like the look of the people in the stadium that are buying product, because you no longer have to, be somebody who played the sport, all the facts, the year the person was drafted. It's like, come and have a fun time. I'm wondering like how it has felt for you, if that's true in your experience, and the ways that the Spirit have expanded their fan base.
Right now, I think women's soccer and the Spirit, we're at a very integral point in society with women's sports that we're seeing this really cool and unique intersection of sports and culture and fashion. And I think that that is shaping how teams are engaging with their fans and how they're connecting with their fans, but also how they're attracting and finding new fans. What's interesting about fandom for women is that we find that women purchase merchandise at a higher level. Gen Z is a very informed consumer, but they're also a very tech savvy consumer. So they are wanting to know more about our players. They're finding them on social media. And it's a really good point where players can provide personality, and so you're seeing that come alive. And so I think that this kind of intersection of sport and culture has been unique kind of in this new era that we're in. And I think teams are really capitalizing on it. I think sports teams are really becoming brands and not just something you do leisurely on the weekend. It's really becoming an affinity that fans feel like they're part of.
Yeah, and they're telling that story in between games. Like I am now a part of the newsletter. I receive the Washington Spirit newsletter. And so when they're on the road, it's like, well, come to this spot and have brunch. Like you're creating community beyond just game day and making them engage, making them feel a part of something. And I think that's what most people want, is to feel like they're a part of something. Now, I didn't do a specific introduction of you because we start this off in such a crazy way, but you are the VP of fan growth and community. And as I said, I have gone to a couple of matches at Rowdy Audi Field, and it's about a half-mile walk from where I am in the Navy Yard area of DC. And as I have been walking down there, block after block, more people are joining the commute to the stadium, and people are excited and they've got their gear. And then as you step onto the ground, you're seeing those big posters of the athletes with their names, and they're all looking tough, ready for game day. Go through tickets and they're smiling. And I got my Rise Up DC flag from a smiling staff member. There were live bands and DJs. I got my first game certificate. So like I'm already happy before I've even walked in and sat down. And I'm wondering, like, what are the aspects around the stadium, the features that you all have set up? You have incredible merchandise, got the Dead Dirt cherry blossom. I want every piece. My pockets weren't that deep that day, but I'm trying to get back to it. Dead Dirt, for all of you, is a native DC brand. That collaboration, just beautiful, styled, amazing. But I'm wondering about, again, the setup around the stadium, the things that fans can enjoy. What are you most proud of about the things that you all have put in place there?
I think the thing that we're most proud of is that we really do a good job of listening to our fans. We take our surveys from fans' experiences and we act on them immediately. We don't wait until the end of the season if we need to make changes. We are responsive to our fans and we are putting forth solutions. We're hearing what they want to do. And I'm proud of the fact that we have tried so many cool things on our grounds and with our games. We have done everything from a silent disco in our concourse area. We're intentional about having food options. So both in the stadium and out of the stadium, we've created a little bit of a food truck area when you first walk up to Audi Field. And so that's been interesting for us to involve some local small business in our actual match. We're intentional about entertainment. And so we've had George Mason's Green Machine Band. We've had Too Much Talent Band. We've really leaned into all of the talent that's here in the DC area. So you'll see dance groups, you'll see drum groups. So we really want you to be entertained. And I think the cool thing about us is that we are taking what is the tradition of soccer and holding true to some of that tradition while adding this new flair of what you're used to when you go to these entertainment and American sports events, right? You want to feel like you are being entertained every single second of the match. And so our goal is from the time that you get off the metro or enter Navy Yard, you're seeing, again, fans with merchandise on. As you get closer to the stadium, you're seeing signage, you're hearing the sounds of the stadium. We try to be intentional about our intro video and our hype video and light shows. And we are really making sure that when you come, you leave and say, that was such a good time. I want to come again. And not just that, I've got to bring people with me. Like somebody else has to experience how fun this is. And I think this year we're doing a really good job of that.
I salute you on that, because as you described, it's like as soon as you're approaching the stadium, you're feeling the vibes, you're hearing the beat, the music, people are excited, they're wearing their gear. And you mentioned something about being intentional about holding space really for those fans that are tried and true. They're staying through the random 20-minute monsoon that comes by. I got trapped in one of those, but they stayed in their seats. We're flowing our Rise Up DC flags anyway. And those could be fans. And I imagine, like, being the VP of fan growth and community, you have to hold space for both. You want to make sure that your tried and true continue to feel the love. Like, they've been coming, they've been supportive. And then those could be communities that maybe haven't been tapped into, could be fans and fall in love with it. So it's holding space for both. Does that sound kind of correct?
Yeah, we definitely do. I think there's an opportunity for us, the tried and true soccer fan, that we put out that talent on the pitch. We are intentional with the access to content that our players are producing so they feel human. But I think when we're talking about engaging new fans, we're really smart about meeting fans where they are. And so we are also trying to make sure that we're out and about outside of Audi Field. It's important for us to know that this demographic of fan is fairly active out in DC. And so we are at other events and festivals. That's why we have a bar network where we can do watch parties. So we're saying, hey, you may not know us well yet, but you will. And once you do, we're going to be really great friends. And so we do a really good job of going out to our bar partners, hosting watch parties with them. And we understand there's a real opportunity for women's sports and for soccer fans, and to grow new soccer fans right now, because we've got FIFA being hosted in North America next year. Then we have LA coming for the Olympics in 2028. So we're about to be in a moment where soccer is going to be on the forefront, and it's a really great time for new fans to jump in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think every 4 years or so, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like, oh yeah, soccer came around. It's World Cup time. It's the Olympics, and the women are amazing. And Brandy Chastain's ripping off her shirt, and Brianna Scurry is making that save, and like we love in the beginning, and then it got quiet. And now we're at a pivotal time where I think those folks who are experienced like yourself understand the necessity of keeping fans engaged between those big moments in time, those big events that are happening worldwide. I want to go back quickly to something that happened the second time I went to a match. And it was in early June, again, before the break. Mm-hmm. And before the game started, you had a young woman sing Lift Every Voice and Sing, which also known as the Black National Anthem. Everybody knows that Black people have two names for everything. It's the actual name and then what we call it. And I was standing under the big signage under there, the big screen, and there were people around me. We all kind of stood up, and I'm singing along proudly, loving the fact that I learned that song when I was young. And at the end of it, first of all, people were kind of like, well, what is this? And at the end of it, I heard a young woman say, like, oh, I kind of like that one better than the other one. it just made me think about how at this time there are a lot of brands and even whole industries that are shying away from certain things. They folded to perceived threats or real threats around diversity and inclusion. And I think sports is like our last beacon of hope where those things are celebrated very openly, demonstratively. We're going to bring these people together, celebrate the diversity, and create experiences for all types of people to enjoy. And I wonder what it feels like for you in this time, knowing that there's kind of this tug of war of people who are standing their ground, if you will, and others who are giving in. Again, in my experience, I kind of think of it in those terms. What has that felt like for you guys?
I think sports has been influential and will continue to always be influential in culture and movements. And I think what's important about our sport is that we cannot shy away from it because it's who is in our game, right? Like we are a women's sports team. We are owned by a minority woman who is a boss in her own right and a genius in her own right. We have 9 international call-ups from countries all over the world, right? We have players that represent the LGBTQ plus community, that represent the disability community, that represent Black and Brown communities. So I think we don't have the option to close our eyes, to turn away, to sit on the sidelines. We are very much are made up of, not just represent, but are truly made up of diversity and inclusion right now. That is just the core of the NWSL. And it's exciting to be part of that because we just give people an opportunity to tell us about themselves, be proud of who they are, and celebrate that with them. We don't make it more complicated. We don't make it polarizing. We simply just say, who are you? It's great to meet you. It's nice to know you. Tell us about what makes you you and what makes you awesome. And we're here to celebrate that alongside you. And I think the spirit, and especially the league and sports in general, has always done that because it is a unifying opportunity.
I hear you. And again, going to the matches myself in person, it just has that feeling, that vibe, that kind of energy. Grab your cotton candy and your Modelo, those big Modelos. I don't think most people eat those things or consume those things together, but I do. And we're just like, come on in and enjoy this game and enjoy the chance. Rise up DC, enjoy the incredible athletes, international athletes, and talent that you see on the field. Now, you mentioned the fact that the Spirit is made up of all of these diverse communities, including the majority owner, Michelle King. Now, I want to point out something that I saw in doing my research about you, RaShauna. You were recently featured in Sports Business Ventures. Hey, big ups to you. And one of the photos that was included, it featured you standing next to Magic Johnson and Michelle King, again, majority owner of the Spirit. First of all, did you catch the Holy Spirit while you're standing between those? No, that's not my real question. My real question is the quote that went along with that photo. It reads like this: "It is a combination of courage and resilience that allows leaders in sports to push the industry forward. There's something beautiful when people are willing to take the risk." What are some risks that you've taken professionally that you can look back and say, yeah, that was worth it? I reaped incredible benefits for taking that risk.
Yeah, I think every job and every role I've had has been a little bit of a risk for where I was in my life. I initially I started my career in sales and I was feeling really good about that, but I knew that I wasn't passionate about sales. I was interested in the sports part, and I just knew that I wasn't kind of living and walking in my purpose or my full potential by doing sales in that way. And so I think it's an important function of the business. And so I had to decide, like, what's the next step? Like, what's the risk I'm willing to take? And I went from having a job where I could pay my bills to saying, maybe I want to go back to grad school and pursue something else right now. I think education was really important to me and I wanted to get that next level, but it is scary to go back to paying somebody when you are keeping the lights on. And I think that was a risk that I took. And also when you get out of grad school, like, I didn't know what was going to happen for me next. So I think anytime you're walking into the unknown and betting on yourself, it is a risk and it's scary. And you really have to have the faith in yourself and belief in yourself and the wherewithal to know that you are going to push forward. And it's a little bit of a walk by faith. And I think that's always been the mindset that I've had, that I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to bet on myself, and I'm willing to do what it takes to succeed. And so I think that is risky. Coming into the NWSL is risky. I was in the NFL. It's a traditional sports team. It's a big, well-known brand within sports. And so taking that leap to say, hey, I'm going to go to the NWSL, that's an emerging league right now. Yeah. That's women's sports. Yes, women's sports is on an upward trajectory, but the argument can be made that the NFL has already arrived in that place. And so it felt like a bit of a risk to take that jump. But I believe so much in the ownership of Michelle Kang and the leadership of Michelle Kang, and also what the league is trying to become for young girls and young athletes.
You played soccer growing up. And again, I was stalking you a bit, RaShauna, in preparation for this conversation. And I saw a post you put on LinkedIn a month or two ago, and it featured you in your little soccer uniform, South Windsor soccer uniform. And in the post, you included this, that soccer was your first love. And it taught you invaluable lessons about failure and resiliency, and set the stage for many positive outcomes in my life. That's a quote from the post. I want some examples here, because there are a lot of data around how women benefit from playing sports, especially team sports, when it comes to self-esteem, when it comes to graduation rates, when it comes to whether or not you're having a pregnancy as a teenager, how you view other women in the workplace as teammates versus competition. So I'm incredibly interested in hearing, especially because you spelled it out. It's your first love, and it set you up for success. Are there some examples that are coming to your mind? Like, this is what I learned through sports and I carry with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Sports, and especially playing soccer, taught me how to lose. I think that is an important lesson we don't talk enough about, because when you start to get to this point, right, and you start having titles and you start working for professional teams, people start seeing your wins consistently, right? They start seeing your wins and they talk about, oh, and you were here, and oh, and you were at this place. And you have to really learn how to fall down a lot of times when you play sports and keep going. The first year I ever played soccer, my team was awful. And not just like, oh, we're struggling, like 1-0 games. And so I, was a little kid at this point. And so the whole point is winning, right? Like, that's the point. And so I went to my mom and I was like, I don't think I want to play anymore. We have not won a single game. Like, clearly this is not my ministry. Let's move on. Let's do basketball. Let's do dance. Like, let's figure it out. And my mom was like, nope, you wanted to play. And so you will finish because we start what we finish, which is a great lesson. And the very next season, that same team, we kept working, we kept practicing. My little team stayed together. And mind you, I'm all of like 8 at this time. So this is like miserable, right? Every weekend losing. And the next year we came back and we won the championship. No lie. And so this cute little team, we had this story. And a few years back, my mom and I were sitting on the couch and we're watching this commercial. And at the time, I think it might've been for Sprint or T-Mobile or some mobile carrier. And it was the same story. It was a South Windsor little soccer team that didn't win a single game. And the next season they came back and won the championship. And we were just laughing and thinking to ourselves at that time, learning how to lose really set me up for all the things that I would do later in my life. And I'm so happy that I had that, because once you get to college and you're playing in college, it is not easy to do. To stay resilient when you're getting up in the morning for early workouts and you're not getting playing time and you feel like you should, or you're not winning games, and right, you feel like it is difficult. And I think going through that difficult and failing and knowing how to work through failure to get to the other side of it was one of the most important lessons that I learned in sports. And I'm excited that I did learn it, because I don't think I would be here if I didn't do those things.
Yeah. The other thing about sports, especially something like basketball or even soccer, you don't really have a lot of time to whine. If you want to win, if somebody gets the ball from you, they block it. They like what you have to turn around and now become on defense and hopefully turn it around and get back on offense. So the whining and the pouting, you might have a second there for it, but your coach is telling you to get your head back in the game. And I think that's helpful for people to put a time limit on the pity parties. You may have thoughts and ideas about what your career trajectory can look like, and it's good to have vision. But again, like what sports can teach us is how to bounce back, how to pivot, how to recover, and the lessons that you can learn along the way about finding teammates, leaning on other people and their strengths. I don't know why I'm preaching about this right now, but I just think that it's so valuable to be able to carry those lessons throughout your career, and the data really backs that up. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned the fact that you worked for the Atlanta Hawks, you worked for the Miami Dolphins. You didn't say the Dolphins, but you said the NFL. If my brother ever listens to this episode right now, he's leaning in the Dolphins. He's huge Dolphins. Fins up, everybody. Fins up, everybody.
Yeah.
But in both those roles, your job was to be involved, and correct me if I'm wrong, involved with the community in a way where you're really focused on youth sports. Youth basketball with the Atlanta Hawks, youth football with the Miami Dolphins, and now with the Washington Spirit. In my mind, again, in doing my research with you, you all have done a lot of work around going into the community in DC and creating opportunities for young people to play sports, to play soccer. Talk to me about what you think the pipeline is from youth sports to professional sports fandom. Like, what is the connection there in your mind?
Yeah, I think a lot of studies have shown that if you play a sport, you are more likely to become a fan and a ticket buyer later, which is why you see so much investment in youth sports. But not just that. I think what we find when we support youth sports is that there's positive outcomes, not just in our game and in our fandom, but there's positive outcomes with these ripple effects in our society. So as kids are becoming athletes, and again, they're learning all of these lessons, they become great contributing members of our society. And I think what's exciting about what we're doing at the Washington Spirit is that we are investing in girls playing the game. We are investing in girls having all of the resources they need to play the game. And I think we're looking at youth sports in all of our country and seeing how the pay to play model is rising, costs are rising, families can't afford for their kids to participate. Kids are shying away from free play and open play. And that is really starting to take shape in our society. And we're seeing that. So we have a focus on creating better ecosystems for girls to play. And what that means is we look at all the things that knocks girls out when we talk about those participation rates. We're looking at coaches. Do we have enough female coaches? Well, data tells us we don't. There's only 26% of female coaches in youth sports right now. That means that when there's a girl playing, she might not even have a female coach in her entire career. And that is crazy to us, right? We think about menstruation and periods and equipment. That's something that boys don't have to worry about when they play, right? They don't have to worry about the effects on their body, but that's something that's different for women. We talk about equipment in sports bras that is unique to women, and we need that to perform at a high level. But when you're a teenage girl and you're getting your period for the first time and you're sprouting body parts you never had, you are more likely to lose your self-esteem and your confidence and to give up that sport so that you don't feel awkward and different. And so we are here and we are breaking the stigma. We're tearing those stigmas down because we're letting them know, hey, we've all been there. It's fine. You'll make it through. You're going to make it out on the other side. And you cannot just make it, but you can thrive. And so we're here to provide you the resources to be able to do that. And that's why we work with DC Scores. We work with Girls Inc. To do period pep rallies where, again, we're breaking that stigma. We work with a nonprofit called Vital Voices to do a program for girls in Anacostia High School. That's not just centered around sport, but it's centered around self-esteem. And we hope they find connection to sport. And so I think that investment is important because we know that those women will become leaders in our game, leaders in our front offices. And if we don't invest in them now, we're going to struggle as a business later.
Yeah. And there's so many things that you brought up that just kind of created more questions in my mind, especially when it comes to coaching. That data point, 26% of coaches are women. And it makes me think like some of the challenges that we've seen and across industries for women is they don't necessarily step up if they don't think they know enough. As opposed to men who are like, I'm probably not qualified, but I'm going to go for it anyway, which is like, I'm not mad at them for that. That's what you probably should do. But there's some learning in your experience as a coach. There's likely, you have to be able to put yourself, in my mind, in a position to be okay with not knowing everything and getting started. Like, Go ahead and the fundamentals of the game. The girls need to know the rules. And by you being out there, like talking to myself, am I a coach? No, maybe I need to get out there myself. But I do think that's that barrier sometimes of lacking that expertise and feeling that you can make an impact as a result. And I think it kind of correlates with fandom. Like, let's open up the idea of what a fan could look like. Let's open up the idea of what a coach can look like to make sure that we have women who are stepping into leadership positions who are investing in the next generation of athletes and fans.
And I think the biggest part of that is, how are we supporting those women that are taking that step? So we talk a lot about continued education, and there's a lot of groups focused on that. But what we don't talk enough about is the transitions that are constantly happening in women's lives where they might not have the resources to be supported. And so that comes with, if I decide that I want to become a mother, can I become a mother and still coach? Well, we know the answer is yes, but what happens when I don't have childcare for coaching when it's after school, right? Like, that is a real struggle. And so maybe I have to back out of coaching because I've become a mom. We saw it this past year when the head coach of the Tennessee women's team had a baby and was back like 2 weeks later. First of all, I was like, girl, as a mom myself, do your thing, because I was trying to lay down and relax. I don't know how you got back to the sideline, but how are we supporting the women that do want to do that? Does she have space and time to nurse? Does she have the opportunity to bring her child with her, right? Like, we have not made enough space, I think, for mothers. And there's a really great nonprofit chamber of mothers that we're starting to work with now that are looking all that. Is FMLA supporting women that are moving careers forward, like careers in sports, right? How are we creating a better world that supports moms and supports moms supporting our society? So I think that's an important part. And not just that every woman is going to become a mother, right? That's not the only thing we're talking about, but we're just talking about resources for women. And that just happens to be one of the unique scenarios that will come up.
Yeah. And I appreciate that we've kind of lifted up this particular topic, because I think this is a big subject that brilliant minds need to come together and figure out. And you're going to be part of that conversation, hopefully, because you experienced both as a mom, as a coach, and as someone who's in the game right now with the Washington Spirit. From the outside, I'm like, you guys figure it out. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, because you've been super generous, and I'm very grateful for this conversation. But there are a few things I want to wrap this episode up with. I want you to, I've got 5 questions for the last 5 minutes, and I'll do my best to not ask them with like 3-minute questions. And sometimes I can go on a little tangent here. Tell me about your first sports memory, or an early sports memory that has stuck with you, that kind of helped enforce your love of sports.
My absolute favorite sports memory, and I say this one because it shows how representation matters, was my dad took me to a tennis match, and we got to see the Williams sisters play in a tennis match. And after, Venus comes over, and she's like 13, right? Because she's young, and she comes over, and my dad is like calling her. He's like that crazy fan, and he like waves to her, and he like points to me, and she comes over and like waves to me and like smiles and gives me this thumbs up. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like, I'm young too, but I'm just like, to see this young Black girl, and then to go on and watch her tennis career and her sister's tennis career, that was a moving moment for me, to see them kind of dominate in a sport that was not historically a Black sport. And so while I was a soccer player and a basketball player, my first very distinct memory was actually watching the Williams sisters play. And that was the one that stuck out to me.
Man, the millions of women who can go back in time and say, like, I was inspired by Venus and Serena. Like, it's insane to me, like, the impact. I don't know what that feels like for them. Maybe one day I'll get them on the show. Like, does it feel inspiring? It's scary?
I know, if I ever meet them, I will shamelessly tell them that story and then ask them for a photo so I can do the side-by-side of the photo from when I was young. And I don't care. I don't care at all. I'm like, I will be a total fangirl.
It's kind of like Coco Gauff. She has that little video of her when she walked behind Venus at a tournament, and it's like, look at her now. I'm like, that's so incredible. All right. That's a great memory. Great memory, RaShauna. Your favorite sports movie or quote from a movie?
Whoa, my favorite sports movie is, gosh, there's so many.
All right, it won't be a favorite, but whatever's kind of coming to your mind at this time.
So
Maybe
Remember the Titans comes to mind, and I feel bad because I feel like it should be a basketball movie, but Remember the Titans comes to mind for me because one, I'm a community person, but my favorite scene in the movie is that like shift that happens when they're in this camp and they're doing it in the rain and they go to do the breakdown and the coach is kind of like, I'm done. Like I've tried everything I could try to get them on board. And the players start like hitting each other and he's like, strong side. And it's like this moment for the Black player where he's got to decide, like, am I going to step up and like join the movement or am I going to continue to keep this rift going? And it's that like look in his eye when he was like, I'm gonna just do it and we'll see what happens. And I feel like I've taken that moment in my career where it's like, all right, like something is happening and I've either got to lean in or I've got to walk away and I can't have any regret, but I've got a split second to make this decision. And it has like moved me in my career in so many ways. So that's my scene in my movie.
Nice. Good scene is inspiring people to like, I'm going to go back and watch that.
Yeah. I know it wasn't a Denzel scene. So like, don't tell him if you ever meet him.
Another person on the list. If I ever get him on the show, I'm going to say,
right.
Okay. How are you making like this show She Got Next features diverse and dynamic women that make the industry of sports go? I'm always asking folks, how are you creating space for the next generation of women to take your place? What are you doing right now that you can point to and say, like, I'm doing this, I want to be successful in this role, but I'm actively doing these things also to make sure the next person who takes it or whoever is even watching me right now is inspired by what I'm doing? Are there particular things that you're making sure that you do to inspire that next generation?
Yeah, I always try to use my voice in spaces. I try to speak truth in spaces and speak my truth in spaces, no matter where I am. But I also try to help students that are on the rise. I just did a post on LinkedIn where I was saying, hey, you have questions about joining the sports industry? Ask me. I'm happy to give answers. And
Nice.
so you'll be seeing some of those come out on my LinkedIn. But that's what it's about. People have questions. And I feel like sports feels like this thing that's very difficult to get into. It feels very fraternity, sorority environment. And like once you're in, you're good, but you got to go through the gauntlet to get there. And so I'm trying to do a good job of breaking that barrier down and just providing access. I think access and information are things that help people leaps and bounds. And so those are the two things that I'm really focused on, whether it's a early career person, whether it's a teenager that's asking me a question when I'm at a nonprofit event. I'm just truly trying to use my voice and I'm actively trying to bring people together. I'm very passionate about getting people to sit at the same table because I just think there's a seismic shift that can happen when you do that. That was what the work that I worked on in Miami was centered around, was how do we bring different kinds of people to the table? Because there is some shared experience that can happen that will make the industry better. And so I am trying to make the industry better by really diversifying all of the seats at the table and pulling people in and inviting people in and trying to give them the most positive experience when they are at the table that I can provide.
I love it. Breaking down the barriers and diversifying the seats around the table. I love that. Yes. July 7th was Black Women in Sports Day. For those of you that are on social in a crazy way like me, you probably saw it all on every platform. Instagram had it. LinkedIn was covered in it. Just beautiful Black women in all their colors. You know, we look good in all the colors. Standing arm in arm, linking shoulder to shoulder, celebrating the fact that they are Black women in sports, and also noting the challenges. The numbers are pretty low. The data around it means, it says to me that we've got more work to do. And the things that you're doing to try to create space, I think will add value and help those numbers kind of grow in terms of the participation in it. But I'm wondering if there's a particular Black woman in sports that has inspired your journey. I know about Venus, but if there's a role, a person who has a different type of role in the industry that has helped you along the way that you want to shout out right now.
Yeah, there's two that come to mind immediately when you ask me that. There's a woman by the name of Zing Shaw, who I worked with at the Atlanta Hawks, who is absolutely phenomenal. She's done a stint at the Grammy. She's done a stint at Starbucks. She's done a stint at Turnkey. And I think what I love about Zing is she's always authentically been herself, even as she climbed. She was the first chief diversity and inclusion officer in the NBA. And I think that that's a really tough role to take. It's really hard to be the first at anything. And I think she did it with such poise and such grace and so authentically. I don't feel like she changed who she was or changed her culture to be more mainstream. I think she was exactly who she was. And I have always seen her be willing to help students and those behind her. And I think that's really important. And I've always admired that in her. And the second person I would say is Raven Jemison, who is the president of Kansas City Current. And I have been kind of watching her career. She was at the Milwaukee Bucks and has grown and has written a book. And so I think I'm drawn to, one, these women that look like me. Obviously, like we said before, representation matters. But two, these women that are not scared to reach back and help others. Wow. They don't continue that cycle of the crabs in a barrel analogy where now that they've risen to the seat that they're at, they've got to only hold the space for themselves because there's not enough for everybody else. They're always willing to connect with people, and they're just genuinely good people when they do. And so I think that that's what I admire most about those two. And I will constantly text them and just like check in and like, hey, just saying hello and continue to cheer them on and champion them in rooms that they're not in. And I think they are really big proponents of that as well. And I think whenever you can cheerlead somebody in their absence, it really is a definition of your character. And it's important to me to have role models and mentors that are driven by high levels of character.
I love that. That's incredible. You've got me hyped. I already said I'm converted to being a Washington Spirit fan. I'm going to the game on August 3rd, which is just 2 days after my birthday. I'm a Leo, so I had to throw that in there. My birthday. That's what we do.
Well, happy early birthday. We can't wait to see you, and maybe we'll shout you out on the video board for your birthday. We do birthday shout outs. So for those looking to come to a Spirit game for their birthday, we would love to have you.
Yes, way to drop that in there. I appreciate that. I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm really nervous, but please, here are the photos I'd like you to use. But I'm super grateful for your time, for your wise words, and again, for what you're doing
with the Washington Spirit and the incredible fan base. And thanks to all of you for watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, following on LinkedIn and Instagram. Please subscribe and share this with everybody you've ever met in your entire lives. Until next time.